Good morning, neighbor. Talking this morning to Kim Becking in Columbia, Missouri. Kim, I don't know if you were supposed to be on a plane, maybe to Seattle or something recently. Um, I follow your Facebook post as a motivational speaker and executive coach. I know that your wings have been clipped for now with the pandemic. So if you could tell us about yourself and just maybe a good morning to everybody who's watching this.
Yeah, good morning. Hopefully many of you watching have found value already in what Jody has been doing and will continue to watch. But I'm a lifelong Boone Countyan. My family's been here since 1820. So long roots in the community. I live in Columbia, and I am a thought leader who focuses on conquering change and boosting resilience no matter what life throws at us. So, and I talk about building a momentum mindset, because so much of what happens in our life all comes back to the power that we have on how we're going to react to those things. So yeah, normally I'm on a plane flying all over the country. Actually, this week I was supposed to be in South Dakota speaking with the South Dakota National Guard, actually, talking about resilience. And so now what I'm able to do with clients and others is provide those same opportunities virtually, exactly how you're doing and how you've had to shift your own business, Jody, as well. So it's learning new ways of adapting and conquering and trying new things and seeing what works and how you can best give and serve and help during this pandemic.
Well, I'm going to provide some additional context here to our conversation and to your background. I think a lot of times people think of a motivational speaker and they think of somebody who's, it's a bad rap, maybe sometimes, like, oh, what do they know, Right. But you said before we started this recording, if we don't have our health, nothing else really matters. And I'm going to reach onto the shelf here behind me.
Yeah.
And here is my copy of Nordy's at Noon. And I did notice this morning when I cracked it open again, it's not signed, Kim.
Well, I can fix that. You could even drop it off on my doorstep, and I can sign it, and you can come get it.
Well, thank you. Let's kind of go back, start the conversation here, maybe. Nordy's at Noon. I'm sure it wasn't the start of your story, but it certainly is a place where life got really real for you, maybe. And I don't want to put words in your mouth or even pretend to know all of your mindset there. Can you take us back to Nordy's at Noon, about this book, about your experience and how it's led you here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer 18 years ago at the age of 30. My son, Brandon, was just turning 2. And, I heard those 4 words, you have breast cancer. And that for me started that journey of life throwing us hard, right? Life throwing us things that we never anticipated, that we never could predict. And so there were 4 of us young women who started meeting once a month at Nordstrom's Cafe in Kansas City, Missouri, where I was living at the time. And we decided there weren't enough resources for young women and breast cancer. And so we decided to write this book about, thriving through change and hard and friendship and the power of that and the power that we all have to really decide how we're going to react to those hard circumstances in our life. And so that was really the impetus for Nordy's at Noon. Patty grew up here in Columbia. She was actually a Hickman Cupie, a friend of mine from college. She was 24 when she was diagnosed. Jana was 27 and just getting married. Jennifer was 27 and 5 months pregnant, and I was 30 and had a 2-year-old. So kind of every phase of a young woman's life going through this. And that's originally kind of what got my start even in the speaking. And then that kind of evolved into, then 10 years ago, I went through a divorce, which was another hard time. And separately, I've had a public affairs and communications company. I'm a recovering attorney and a recovering political consultant. I'm in lots of recovery programs. So I've been speaking for 18 years, and really that has now morphed into, leadership development and coaching and helping others thrive no matter what, because we're all going to have hard. And I think everyone collectively we're all dealing with that right now. You know, we
Sure.
have collective, this collective grief, this collective experience, this collective hard that we've never experienced before. And out of that can come not only individual resilience and tools and growth and learning how to not just survive this, but come out of this better than before, but also our collective resilience and how we as a community and as a country and as a world can come together to help each other get through this. Because in the end, isn't that what it's all about? You know,
Sure.
helping each other
Well,
through
and
the hard.
the tagline for the Pandemic Press website is surviving and thriving together during this pandemic. And I don't know I was going to just kind of hit, right, surviving, and thriving just sort of came next. And I thought, okay, well, that does take it another step, doesn't it? And so then I was telling Kelly, my bride, it'd be great to have some tips on what you can do to kind of stay sane and find peace during this time. Can you give me some, because as a therapist, as a mindfulness person who, uses that in her own life and in her professional life. Then she says, well, I've got a list. Would you like to have it? So she says, she gives me
Yes,
this list. And
yes,
so that's on the website, Survive and Thrive,
yeah,
Find Peace Now. And, I think one of the things that we find out is, as you said, I love the term, this is the collective hard. We're in this together, but you also said earlier, everyone's dealing with this differently. Um,
yeah, yeah.
and there's
We
no right.
there's no right way. There's no right way to do a pandemic, and we are all coming at this from such different directions, right? And I think I shared with you, Jody. You know, both my business and my husband's businesses have been 100% impacted. So he has a retail store. So it's there are some parents who are home trying to homeschool their kids while they're working. And they're not working from home. They're working from home during a crisis. They're not homeschooling their kids. They're crisis schooling their kids, right? So we've got all these things around us. People who are home and single and alone and truly isolated. I mean, there's so many different experiences that we all have, and some who are essential workers who are having to actually go to work and be fearful every day, and our frontline workers and our healthcare workers and our grocery store workers and all of these people collectively who are literally keeping us alive. But we all, we're all going through what I call, it's the stages of grief, whether we realize it or not. And so what are those things that we can do to give ourselves grace and to give those around us grace, to not compare, because we've all lost things as a part of this, but to stop comparing and not have that judgment, because we don't know someone else's circumstance and we don't know what they're actually going through. And so it's giving yourself grace, but also giving everyone around you heaping amounts of grace. To really try to meet them where they are, because again, there's no right way. There's no right way to do this.
And let me jump in there then because I want to ask you for maybe two or three other, how do you stay grounded right now? And I think that was a great place to start.
Yeah.
First of all, you realize that, your spouse's bad day suddenly is magnified maybe, or your bad day is suddenly magnified. Everybody give each other grace. And I'm going to ask you to maybe give some other kind of grounding tips, but to first sort of illuminate a little bit on what you just said. The idea that this is a temporary crisis, that this too shall pass.
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic, we will be post-COVID someday. I heard that. I heard that term.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if some of the changes that we're experiencing now will become permanent, or at least opportunities to become permanent. Like if we could be less judgmental of someone else's circumstances, we don't know their story. I mean, that's pretty good advice, encouragement all the time, right?
Yes.
But if that can become a mindset now,
yeah,
hopefully that's something that it lives on post-COVID.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think that's the hope that many of us have is that and PC, right? But pre-COVID, it didn't matter who I was talking to. We were all, what industry, what client, what community I was going to. People were overwhelmed. People were stressed out. People were maxed out. And, it was the world of busyness that we live in. And now I'm still talking to people who are busier than they were before, because now we're living our life through Zoom calls and then trying to still manage everything else in the middle of a crisis. But I think it's also an opportunity to, if you are at a point, to be able to really pause, right? To truly pause and really focus on what matters, right? What matters the most. And like I said at the beginning, there's nothing more important than our health. Because if we don't have that, we have nothing, and as someone who's fought for my life from a cancer perspective, I know firsthand what that looks like. And I married a widower. So, and have lost so many other family and friends and not to COVID, but, think about all of the people right now who are struggling and grieving with not only death of family members or friends or loved ones, but then all of those other collective losses that we have. And so, I think it is an opportunity to really dig deep and at our core, if you strip away everything else, what really, really matters.
Well,
And it's love, right? It's faith, it's hope, it's family, it's connection. It's, first of all, health, right? But I always say my 3 F's, not that F word, but the other F's, right? Faith, family, and friends. It's that collective, that need for us. And even before this, right? We were more connected than ever because of technology. But for many of us, we were less connected than ever, because we weren't truly, when we said, how are you? Did we really mean it? And were we looking people in the eyes? Were we talking to our neighbors? Were we figuring out how can we truly help and serve and give in that way, and realize that we're all a part of something bigger than ourselves? And it's that selflessness and that giving and that serving, particularly in a time of crisis, and realizing that there are so many that are in just unimaginable circumstances right now.
sure.
As you and I sit here in our houses with the roof over our head, there are many in our community who don't have that.
Right. Well, I'm hearing stories of teens, for instance, who, we've sort of said, as you just said, we've never been more connected, but also less connected. And I think that, at least for the older generation, maybe mine and then yours, I'm not putting us in the same generation, but we're close.
Yeah.
I know I'm just discovering really the value and the use of Zoom and of using social media, not just to announce what I had for breakfast, but for this sense of connection. But what I'm hearing though too is teens who we say, oh, they're always on their phones, they're not even connected together, and now many of them, they're cooped up at home.
Yeah.
They're staying at home. They can't be with their friends. What they want more than anything isn't to have this kind of FaceTime digital communication. They are really craving and yearning for, and maybe even traumatized by not having that social direct connection of face-to-face friends. And I thought that's ironic, that's sad, that's wonderful. It's what
I have I have 3 kids. One who doesn't live at home, he's 20, but the other 2 are 14 and 17. So I can absolutely relate to that.
You talked about that we're all living through the stages of grief, and I know that also occurs for people at different times and different degrees. So just such a huge amount of emotion going on here, sort of collectively. I can tell that people are thinking, well, the stay-at-home order ends on Monday. We're recording this on the 23rd of April. I think Monday, is it the 3rd or the 4th, we're supposed to, maybe the businesses, some of them can reopen. And I think that people are waiting just like a overripe chick to burst out of the egg. And
Yeah.
hopefully it doesn't backfire on us. And I'm hoping that it's slow enough that maybe we don't forget some of the slower pace that we have come to experience.
Yeah, and I think a part of that too is I think things will be different for a while. And what I've been saying from the very beginning is this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so it's important to acknowledge all of those emotions that we have, because it's like a roller coaster, right? And not just a roller coaster that's like this. It's like going upside down and inside out. And I've been sharing a lot my You Are Allowed card, and I'll send you a digital file of this so that you can share this. And
Good.
I won't
Okay.
read it all right now, but the whole point of this is that we have to give ourselves permission to feel whatever it is we need to feel. And this card says you are allowed to be sad, to feel helpless, to be tired, to be depressed, to be lonely, to be angry, and it goes on, right? But on the flip side, you are allowed. You are allowed to be grateful, to feel loved, to be hopeful, to realize you're not alone, to find joy, right? Which side of the card are you on today? And we all may start out on one side of the card, and 5 minutes later, we're on the other side of the card. And I've been handing this out for 15 years. Actually, Patty, my friend who co-wrote the book from here in Columbia, she gave me a handwritten card that said this.
Really?
And so I've adapted it a little bit,
Uh-huh.
but I have been handing these out to audiences for 15 years. And I still have people years later saying, do you have some more of those cards? Can I get some of those?
Oh, nice.
So I've been sending these out to all my healthcare frontline workers, my
Okay.
clients, and the wallet size so they can have those. But I have a digital file I'll share that you can put on the website. But I think that the whole point is we have to give ourselves that permission. And the other thing is to remember that we have to focus on what we can control. And particularly as you're looking at resilience and dealing with change and uncertainty, because the stay-home order will lift at some point, but it might not look like our old normal. And there's still going to be uncertainty as we go through this process. And so really focusing on what you can control. Like making a list. What are those things that I can control? And then what are those things that I can't? And on the things that you can control, write them on a sheet of paper, wad them up and throw them and say, let it go. I do this in person with my audiences. And now I've been doing it with coaching clients too. Like, what are those things that you need to let go of? And giving you a way to set boundaries, right? So for me, it's the news. It was just too much negativity. And so I am very careful at what I'm reading. I want to be informed. I want to be educated. But I can't stay on social media all day and look at all the negativity. And that's why I choose to be a bright spot. But that's something that I can control. So for each of us, that's so important. And that's an important part of what I call, radical self-care right now. Self-care is not selfish. It's what are we doing for each of us to take care of ourselves, knowing this is a marathon, not a sprint. We have to take care of ourselves. And what does that look like for each of us from that perspective? And being grounded in that, being grounded in self-care, being grounded, I talk a lot about gratitude, as you know. I know you know how important that is as well.
Well, I was going to say just now, I was going to jump in with your Facebook post this morning was have a momentum mindset, be grounded in gratitude. And you make reference to the journal that you've been keeping on gratitude. So if you would talk a little bit more about that, but also in terms of, one thing my heart's really heavy for, and I've talked with the development director out at Coyote Hill and other people in social services, and my wife being a therapist. There are people who are already sort of trapped at home, who are now really trapped at home. Women in domestic abuse situations, kids who are either abused or neglected, and apparently there's some indication that this has increased the prevalence of that, maybe to some families who had not experienced it before. So Kim, what would be your words of hope or encouragement say to a young woman or older woman who might be watching this and say, well, there's seems to be nothing I can control and there's no way out of this.
Right. And I think, and particularly in our community, we do have a lot of wonderful resources. And so I think it would be, really knowing you're not alone, and there are so many people out there that love you and that you are here for a reason. And so to be able to reach out, and again, I'm not a therapist, I'm not an expert in that area, but what I know my research has shown me, particularly as it comes to resilience and being, the importance of being grounded in gratitude. It's hard to be grounded in gratitude if you're in the middle of an abusive relationship and scared for your life. And so in that instance, right, it's really knowing that there is help out there. And I think for all of us, now is the time to pick up the phone, to pay attention, to check in on our neighbors, to ask how they're doing, to go knock on the door if you haven't seen an elderly neighbor come out in 4 days, because they're afraid and maybe they're not taking their daily walks, but just to call people, right, to do the social distance, but just to check in on people and ask them truly how they're doing. Mm-hmm. And what do you need? How can I help? And, I kind of have a list. I made a list before this of people that I know that are also already suffering from depression and anxiety. And perhaps this really has amplified that in a big way. And then there are others, right, who have never experienced anything like depression and anxiety, and now they're experiencing it and they don't have the tools either. And so there are a lot of mental health resources out there. There are a lot of those things, and maybe you could I can send you a list and you could share some of those on your website, or your wife probably has a lot of those as well. But I think, it's for all of us, it's knowing where we are, feeling what we need to feel, being grounded in that gratitude, being grounded in wanting to help others and serve others. And back to the gratitude for a minute, research shows there's power in gratitude. There's that it can literally reduce your stress and boost your resilience by just forcing you, even on the crappy days, even on the days where you think there is nothing in this world to be grateful for. Well, first of all, you're here and you're alive and you woke up. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
Right. So it's there's always something. There's always something. So going back to that. And then the other thing is also, and I know you had mentioned hope, right? And hope is really important right now.
Oh, sure.
And it reminds me of a story, and you may have heard this story in one of my past speeches, but I talk about green bananas. Mm-hmm. and the power of green bananas. So when I was going through my cancer, I finally felt good enough to go to the grocery store one day. And to me, that made me feel normal. And although now that's not our normal. Now I get too nervous going to the grocery store, so I'm ordering online. So, but someday I will hope for that. But anyway, this day I was going into the grocery store and I saw these green bananas, and I all of a sudden started putting all of these green bananas in my cart. Everyone around me probably thought I was crazy. But to me, those green bananas signified hope. Hope that I would be here when they ripened. And so for me, that gave me something to look forward to.
Oh,
and
sure.
so now 18 years later, I still buy green bananas and put them on my counter. And they give me hope that I'm going to be here when they ripen, because none of us know, right? None of us know when it's ripe. Right. And so for all of us, particularly right now, in the middle of this pandemic, in the middle of uncertainty, and even when the stay-at-home is lifted, our world is going to look different. And things are going to continue to evolve and change, and there's going to be continuing to be uncertainty, and so many people have been laid off, and we're in the middle of a recession, and now some are saying possibly a depression, and all of the things, right? All these heavy things. What is something, I want to ask everyone watching, What is something right now that you can be hopeful for? What is something right now that, whether it's tomorrow, and I'm all about living in the present, and the mindfulness and being present, but I particularly think right now, and a key to that resilience is also looking at things that you can look forward to. So whether it's a week from now or 2 weeks from now, when you're gonna, if the stay-at-home's lifted and you're going outside and going somewhere, what is it that you're looking forward to the most? And or a year from now, or just something to give you that hope for the future.
Well,
And
let's
hold on
let
to
that.
that. Hold
Yeah,
on to that.
and let's let that everybody digest that for a minute, and hopefully as they watch this, and they'll leave a comment maybe on what they're hopeful for,
Yeah.
maybe for today, next week, and a year from now. Kim, I wanted to mention two other Facebook items of yours before we wrap up.
Yeah.
I don't know, when was your birthday?
March 19th.
March 19th. Okay, because see, I keep trying to think of when did this start? I
The
know,
beginning of March.
yeah, well, I mean, when did it
It
become,
seems like 50 years ago,
I
but
know, when did it become real? And most people I've talked to with on High Neighbor, they've said, when this started, everybody was thinking, hey, this is going to be a tough 2 weeks, but we can do this. Let's
right.
stock up. Let's buy all the toilet paper now. And, here we are 6 weeks later. It's going to be 7 or 8 or more. But it was March the 19th, your birthday,
Mm-hmm.
your Facebook post said, hey, stay safe out there. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but, they say that to wash your hands for 20 seconds, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
But basically, it was the amount of time it takes you to sing happy birthday.
Right. Right.
Once or twice, I forget. So you had said, hey, everybody, today when you're washing your hands, sing happy birthday to me twice. And I think I sang happy birthday to you about 14 or 16 times that day. But, and this is going to sound so dorky, when I do check Facebook first thing in the morning, and I don't always, sometimes I don't check Facebook much, but I see, you get the notification of whose birthday it is,
Yeah.
wish them a good day or help them celebrate. I typically think of that, if I know that one person, I know of them, I stick their name in my mind when I'm washing my hands.
Yeah.
I sing to them twice. So I don't know if that just sounds too nerdy or not. The other thing, you had made a request for, you were going to have movie night, and you were asking for requests, which what are some movies we should watch? And I think I came in very late on that list, and I think I had recommended Galaxy Quest. I think later you had mentioned which one you did watch. Do you remember?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Ferris Bueller. Okay.
Yeah, because the kids had not seen that yet. They're teenagers. So,
Yeah.
so we watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and that was very early, right? That was in March.
Yeah,
And,
6 weeks ago.
I'll be 100% honest with you now, right? And everybody's, oh my gosh, this is the best time ever for our family at home. And my kids are amazing. Like, they are showing me they are so resilient and they're incredible. But they're kind of tired of their parents, and they don't really want to do family night. They don't want to do game nights with us. They don't want to watch movies. They'll come to the living room and we'll visit, and we've been going on walks and things. But it's not all perfect, right? And I think before, and I think this is the power. This is the power of vulnerability and authenticity. And, and I talk about this a lot from a leadership perspective. And now more than ever, we all need that. Like, no one is going through this. And I've dealt with this a lot, even with my own colleagues, because early on, there was a lot of this productivity pressure.
Yeah.
I'm writing my book, and I'm developing this online course, and I'm doing this, and I've been doing things, right? But I've also had to work with, and worry about my kids. I also have had other things, and I've had hard days and been on this one side of the card, and it took me a day or two to get over to the other side. And so it's knowing that you got to do what works for you, and let go of the guilt or the shame, or, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or comparing losses. That was the other thing,
Right.
right? Of,
Hmm.
oh, well, that loss wasn't as bad as this loss. And this was happening before the pandemic.
Sure.
And so now, and that's where I feel like for me, right? I'm a speaker. I'm a coach. I do these things, but I'm normally on the road, right? So I normally don't have as much time to sit here and write and create and do the things that I'm doing now. And I I'm not on the front lines. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I can't sew anything, even a button on. So I'm not sewing masks. I had to buy my masks from somebody. So, so it's but I know what my superpower is, which is helping provide that hope and that positivity to others. Right? That's how I can help, is by shining my light. Just like you, Jody, you're a former reporter. You have this way with words, and the blog and the site that you're starting, and I mean, that's your superpower. So each of us during this has our own superpower that we can bring to the table. So what does that look like for you?
Okay. See,
What does
yeah.
that look like for you? Because we all have that, and we all have our own unique abilities. And again, it's okay to have those hard days, and to be sad, and to grieve, and to just be pissed off. Pardon my language, but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay, because I've been there. Believe me, I've been there, and I still have those days. But every day we have that choice on how we're going to show up for our families, as a leader, in our organizations, in our community, and online, and in the world.
Well, and I am grateful today, and Kim, that you made the choice to get on this Zoom call with me and share some of your insights and your own, uh, range of emotions with this, and really kind of to collectively give us all permission to feel the way that we're feeling.
Right. To
And
breathe.
because it won't be the same tonight as it maybe was this morning or it is right now.
That's right.
So, last words from you. If somebody's been watching this or will be listening, what do you hope most that they take away?
To take care of yourselves, to take care of each other, to give yourself permission, to give yourself grace, to feel what you need to feel, to take care of those around you, and to just pour love into people, and realize that we're all in this together, and that you have the opportunity to be the light in the world when the world really needs the light right now. And I want to thank you, Jody, for what you're doing, because I think this is awesome. I think this is amazing. I think our community needs this now more than ever. So thanks for stepping up and filling this hole in our community at a time when we really need it.
Well, thank you, and I thank you for being responsible for helping light that spark.
Absolutely.
You have a great day, Kim. Thanks for joining me.